All right, folks, I think we are ready to get started. Good afternoon. This is Francisco from VCS. And thank you for registering for our administrative training class. This one is titled Creating and Assigning Schedules. Now, one of the reasons why we created this class is for those within your organization who may have not been involved in the initial schedule build, but who may be responsible for adding people to schedules once you go live. So we're going to just take a brief look at how to assign our employees to schedule rotations, which is a topic that was covered in the 5th online setup class. But again, you may have some folks within your agency who may have not been part of that build. They may have not sat in on those classes, but that just might be part of their duties. They might have to add employees, they might have to assign them to schedules, or they might even have to reassign people when the time comes. So again, we're going to just briefly review the process for assigning people to schedule rotations, but we're also going to take a look at how to reassign employees. If you have someone who is moving from one schedule to another, and as we start approaching the new year, you might have a few reassignments that might need to be applied. So we'll take a look at how that's done. We're also going to take a look at how to build schedules for those without an actual work pattern. So for those of you that might have part-time employees, or per diem might be a better way of describing those folks. You know, people who just don't have a fixed schedule. We're going to talk about how we can get them onto a schedule. And for that, we're going to use a tool called Build Custom Schedule. Okay, and so just before we get started, this class, just like all others, is scheduled for 90 minutes. We're probably just going to use a small portion of that time. The rest of that will be reserved for any questions that you may have that I will be happy to answer. And so, again, just because a few folks just logged in as I was getting started, just a reminder that the microphones will be muted. I will not be able to hear you, but you can use the chat feature of GoToTraining. However, when I'm done, I will open up those microphones, and I'd be happy to take any last-minute questions you guys might have. Okay, so let's get started. Let's first take a look at assigning our employees to schedule rotations. To do that, we're going to click on the Build Schedule menu, and we're going to select Add Employees to Existing Rotations. At the very top of the screen, you're going to set the date range for the schedules that you want to build. Now, my schedules for my system here have already been built for 2016, but I may choose to build my schedules out for the following year. So using the drop-down calendar, I can navigate to January 1st. I'm going to build schedules until December 31st of 2017. And so again, I can use the drop-down calendar. Next, I'm going to select the employees that I want to assign. Using the Select Employees button, you can choose individual employees or you can use the filtering options over to the right, and let's bring this screen here a bit more front and center. For instance, I may be interested in just assigning smaller groups at once. I'll do just that. I'll click on the group button, and here I will just select those within my administration group. Once I click on Select and Close, it will show me everyone within that group, and I can choose to either select all individuals within administration, or I can highlight the individual names. Now, the more people I assign to the schedule, the longer it's going to take for this to save. So for the purposes of being able to move ahead, I'm only going to assign one employee, in this case our deputy chief, and we'll click on the Select and Close button. Now you'll see that employee along with any others that you may have chosen. And over on the right, if the employee was never scheduled before through this system, you're going to notice rotation code and rotation description are blank. If you do see a code and description, that means that the employee was assigned to a schedule previously, and this was the last schedule rotation that they were assigned to. Now, if these fields are blank, you'll need to make sure that you select the right schedule rotation over to the right, and you'll need to click on the green arrow in the middle. So before you click on the Apply button to build this schedule, again, you just want to make sure that you have a rotation code and a description in those last two columns. Now, before we click on the Apply button, we're going to take a look at the start time and end time columns. Now, going back to what we've learned in building our schedules, we know that a schedule rotation is a work pattern that is tied to a specific shift. In this case, my administrative rotation is a simple Monday through Friday schedule that is tied to a shift called PD admin. Now, that shift, just like all others, has a default start and end time. For some of you, that might be 8:30 to 4:30, 8 to 4, 9 to 5. It could come in a number of different configurations. The start time and end time column allows you to set a specific start and end time for that individual. In other words, everyone else who works that same admin shift might work 8 to 4. But this particular employee might work 9 to 5. That's exactly the example I will apply here. So I'm going to enter that start and end time. And when I'm ready, I'm going to click on the Apply button. Now, as I mentioned before, the more employees you schedule and the date range that you are assigning them for will all affect how long this particular step takes. Also, while we're waiting, I'd just like to discuss very briefly anyone who who does bid shifts, right? So some of you might do that on a yearly basis, might do it every 6 months. You may have people that are switching over to different schedules. My recommendation there is to take a look at how often people really move and how many people move. If it's a small percentage of people that are going to get moved around, consider building out your schedules for maybe 2 or 3 years. If it's a small percentage, then why not build out the schedules and just reassign people as it becomes necessary? So with that said, I'd like to just close out of this screen, and sticking with the Build Schedule menu, we're going to take a look at Reassign an Employee next. Reassign an Employee is the perfect screen to use when someone is not only moving into a new schedule, but they might even be moving to another group. So those within the police departments, if you have a Squad A person who next year is moving into Squad C, that can all be done just with a few clicks. The way it works is you select your employee, I'll select someone from my Squad B, and I'm going to use the rotation selection list to reassign that individual to a Squad A rotation. Next, I'm going to select the new group assignment. So even though I already selected which rotation they're moving into, I also need to select what group they're going to be tied to as well. Next, select your dates. Now, this particular reassignment might just last for next year. That's perfectly fine. But if you choose to build your schedules even further, do so, because you can always reassign as it becomes necessary. Now, you'll notice you also have the option to adjust work times here as well. So if you are reassigning someone to a particular shift, but they're not going to work the same exact hours as everyone else, you can go ahead and set those times separately. When you're ready, click on the Apply button. Now, while we're waiting for this to save, you may choose to use Reassign an Employee for training as well. If you have someone who is going out to a 1-week or 2-week training class, you may choose to move them into more of a Monday through Friday schedule. So you can take them out of whatever schedule they were on and move them to a Monday through Friday schedule in its place. And you can do that for just a short period of time. After that date range has ended, the employee's schedule will go back to whatever schedule rotation they were on. Let's close out of Reassign an Employee. And next, we're going to talk about part-time or per diem employees. So going back to the rotations that you created during your online schedule build, we asked you to create work patterns for as many people as you possibly could. Now, you may have certain part-time employees that have fixed schedules. You may have a Monday through Thursday employee, or someone who doesn't work Wednesdays. Well, those are work patterns, so we would still suggest creating rotations for those types of employees. But for others that may work as you need them, who fall into that per diem category, building a rotation is simply not possible. So I'd like to talk about how we can get those folks on the schedule. Using the Build Schedule menu, we're going to take a look at a screen called Build Custom Schedule. And when that screen pops up, you'll notice the calendar, which soon we're going to populate that with a work schedule. Over to the right, you're going to see the date range that you actually want to assign the person to the schedule. You're going to be able to select individual employees or groups of employees. And at the very bottom, you have a list of all of your shifts. So let's go ahead and change our dates here. In fact, I'll use my drop-down calendar to select this month. And on the left, I'm going to make sure that I have my September calendar up. And I'm going to build a schedule. Now, for this particular employee, I'll use the administration shift. And I'm just going to click and drag over onto the work days. So again, because this person does not have a work pattern, building a rotation is just not possible. So this is a great fit for those of you with per diem employees who build your schedules a week or a month at a time. Now that we have our schedule built, over to the right, you just need to indicate when you're actually assigning this person to the schedule. So it seems redundant. You already picked the month here, but the system doesn't assume that you want to assign them for the entire month. So you have to make sure you set the date range properly or use the drop-down menu. Next, select the employee that you want to assign. And of course, you can select multiple employees if you need to. Otherwise, click on Select and Close. When you're done, click on the Apply button. Now, the message that will appear is asking you, do you want to overwrite anything on the schedule for this employee? Meaning, if they were already on a shift working, do you want this new schedule to overwrite what is currently there? Or do you want these entries to be added to that person's existing schedule? I may choose to click No. I may use this just to build the person's initial schedule, but maybe even add additional days. In that case, I certainly wouldn't want to remove this individual from any schedule. Now, you may also consider using a screen like this to assign things like on-call schedules. You may have groups of people who work maybe a Monday through Friday schedule, but you want to put them on an on-call shift. Well, create your on-call shift and then use this screen to build that schedule. Let's click on the Clear All button for a moment. And let's take a look at the custom times. If I mark custom times and modify those, in this case, maybe I'll change it from 9 to 5. Now when I move that shift over, it's not only bringing the admin shift, but it's adjusting the start and end times as well. Okay. So for those that not only have per diem staff, but maybe they're working part-time on that day, maybe they only work a half shift, you may have to adjust the start and end times before you move that shift over onto any working day. Okay, so because we have a relatively large group this afternoon, I'd like to move over to the Q&A period next. For those of you who have per diem employees or people who have schedules that are just all over the place and you were not able to build schedule rotations, if you feel that this might be a good tool for you, now would be a great time to try it out on your system, or I would certainly be able to answer any additional questions that you have. Now, one question has come through already, it's a good one, is will a new schedule take days off into consideration? So, yes, absolutely. And let's talk about reassigning an employee first when it comes to that. If you're reassigning an employee who already has time off on the schedule, that time off may not apply any longer, or it may need to be applied to another shift. And in other words, I may have been on a day shift when I requested a vacation day, but now you're reassigning me over to a night shift. Well, the day off will be transferred onto the new shift that you moved me to. Now, with regards to custom schedules, time off and overtime will not be affected. And in other words, if you put me on a schedule for a particular day, it's not going to affect any time off or overtime activity that may have been on there. Now, the chances are small that time off would have been there because you would have had to have a schedule in the first place. You can't have a vacation day on a regular day off. It can't happen. So the more, I would say the more possible scenario may have been that you may have had someone on the schedule on a particular day, but now you're overriding that with a completely new shift. Okay. Now, if when you put them on the schedule, they then put in for a day off, and now you're overriding that with the new schedule, they will still have time off on that day. It's just going to apply to a different shift. Okay. So I hope that answers that question, but if I didn't hit the mark with that, please let me know, and I'll be happy to expand on that. Now, I'm going to open up the microphones, and you'll notice that sticking out of the left side of the Go-To training program, there should be a button with like a hand. So you can raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question, just so we can do this in an orderly fashion. That would be great. Otherwise, again, you can use the chat option in Go-To training. So are there any questions about assigning someone to a schedule, reassigning them to a new schedule, and changing their group? Are there any questions on building a custom schedule?
On that custom schedule, if you assign a alternative start and end time, and then you unclick that box and drag that assignment over to a different date, will it return to the normally default schedule times?
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. So you can select the shift first if you would like. You can apply custom times if necessary. And as long as you have that checkbox marked, every time you move a shift over, and it doesn't even matter if I move to another shift. So I'm glad you asked the question, because you know, it could mess things up, right? So it's assuming, I don't care what shift you're bringing over, these are the times that are being tied to it. So now if I was to unmark that checkbox, if I was to then move over the same shift, now for that second week, the week of the 12th, it's now looking at whatever default times were tied to that shift originally.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, so let's take a look. Any other questions on assigning, reassigning, or building custom schedules? And, you know, for some of you, a good percentage of you have most of your employees, if not all of them, working a schedule rotation. So your takeaway from this class is more on learning how to reassign someone when the situation comes up. But is there anyone out there that has per diem employees?
I have a quick question. We have, I change people just in the summer in a certain department, but 2 of the employees stay the same. I change their hours just for the summer. So how would I do that? Select the department, but then unselect 2 of the employees in the department.
Okay, so in your case, the person isn't being reassigned per se. It's just their hours are being adjusted for the summertime.
For the summer, and it's a whole department, but 2 of the employees in there.
But 2 of the employees. Okay, that's a great question. Thank you. So let's exit out of this screen, and let's take a look at our supervisor zone. Normally, whenever we adjust someone's work times, that would be considered a supervisory level function. So under the supervisor zone, let's select update schedule times. Okay, here you're going to select the group of employees that you want to make that change to. And you mentioned that it was a particular group or a particular shift, so you may consider using one of your filters to just zero in on that group, like what I'm doing here. And now I'm just going to highlight the people who are going to be affected by this change. So you mentioned, you know, it's pretty much everyone but 2 people, so just leave them out. And then click on the Select and Close button.
Huh.
Now, over to the right, you can choose which days of the week this change is going to affect. Now, if these are Monday through Friday employees, it should look exactly like that. Click on that arrow once again to hide that list, and then set the date range. Okay, so just roughly estimating when this might end. Okay, you're going to put in your date range. Next, if the employees you're changing schedule times for are assigned to the same shift day in, day out, then just leave it marked to all shifts. Okay. Now, for the rest of you, you may find another application for this. You may need to adjust someone's work times only when they're working a specific shift for whatever date range you choose. Well, if that was the case, select the shift that the time change will apply to. So only when the employees are on that shift will the hours be adjusted. But going back to the original example, we'll leave that set to all shifts, and now we're going to adjust the hours. When you're done, click on the Apply button. Now, depending on how long you choose to do this and how many people are affected, it might just take a few seconds to save, but you saw for those 3 employees, 110 entries on the schedule were adjusted. And so now if I was to pull back the schedule to just a week before, you'll notice the adjusted times are now displayed to the left of, or to the right, rather, of everyone's name. Mm-hmm. Now, when that employee tries to request time off, it now registers those hours. Okay. Now, the end date for me was September 2nd. The next working day would have been the 6th. Those hours would have gone back to the whatever the original shift said, and so those hours would no longer be displayed. On the following week. Okay. And again, that was found under the Supervisor Zone, under the Change Info category, and the name of that screen is Update Schedule Times. Okay. Okay, I see no further questions coming through the chat, no hands raised. Is there any other questions about what we have covered this afternoon? Okay, well, if there's no further questions, that's all I have for you this afternoon. I did just want to remind you all that as you move through your basic training classes, and for some of you this might be the last one, you may choose to move to the next set of classes, which are your advanced setup and training classes. And within those classes, you're going to learn how to set up your payroll module. You'll take a look at how to set up extra duty billing. You'll also learn how to automate certain functions like setting up holiday pay or setting up rules for filling overtime. And so you're still going to use a registration page like this one. You'll see your list of advanced classes. I just wanted to point out that you can always sign up for these help out sessions. So if you need just specific help, things that just might be unique to the way your agency does things, those are the best opportunities to get your answers. Those are 45-minute one-on-one sessions, and you can sign up for them as many times as you feel is necessary. All right, folks, so if there's no further questions, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for your time. I'm just going to hang out a few more minutes in case there's any last-minute questions that anyone out there has. Otherwise, please enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we'll see you next time.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
If we're transitioning from the legacy version to this new version, are all our rotations going to be built, or do I have to rebuild them?
No, they're already built. So the newest version of our application, Schedule App, is linked to the same database that your legacy system was tied to. All of your employees, your schedules, all time off, overtime reasons, and all of the activity, right, most importantly, all of that activity that's been applied will all appear in the Schedule App version. Okay. The only thing that you guys really have to concern yourself with is learning how to set up your dashboards. That's very important because you didn't have nearly as many capabilities in the legacy system as you do with this one. So you'll want to learn how to sort of optimize that for your desktop. You're also going to have to reevaluate security. Now, there is a tool that transfers your security levels, the user, system operator, sec officer, security levels. But you're going to still want to take the classes and learn how to modify security because we've added additional features. We have modified the way certain features work. And so it's just helpful to take another look at it and see, how do I want to modify my security to take advantage of these new functions? Those are probably... Yeah, those are probably the biggest things that I would say you would need to focus on. At that point, you can go right to the training classes, user, supervisor classes, just to get sort of acclimated to how the interface has changed. But one thing that you're going to find is that really the screens, especially for your basic users, have not changed a whole lot. We request time off the same way we always have. We just added additional features. For many years, many of our legacy clients have said, we love the web portal. We just wish we could do more with it. I wish that our supervisors could fill overtime using, our call lists, or we wish that we could create extra duty jobs through the web portal. The web portal used to be very basic user specific. There was a couple of supervisor screens in there, but we've added so much more to the point where, quite honestly, even administrators can perform a lot of their functions through that web portal. So that's probably, going to take up a little time, is just getting used to all of the new things that we've thrown onto that web portal for you.
I got one other quick question regarding dashboards, and I should have asked this at the dashboard class, but is there a specific dashboard for, say, each shift? I mean, those are profiles we build, and we can decide whether the supervisor wants to change them for his shift, right?
You can. I don't.
I mean, we want to just stick with one basic, dashboard.
Well, I tell you this. Most of your supervisors can actually function off of the web portal in our newest version.
Okay.
They don't even need the desktop application anymore. But with that said, if you're going to have a bunch of people accessing the desktop version, I would recommend creating a profile that everyone can use. Because here's the problem. If you allow everyone to create their own views, we're no longer all on the same page, right? You're looking at something that could be a little different from mine. And trust me, you can really configure the heck out of these things to the point where it could be very confusing, the differences between what one guy's seeing and what the other guy's seeing. Yeah. I like creating one centralized profile that takes into account everyone's needs, and then we just grant them access to just view it. If you have someone who's more of a payroll type person, and there's just certain things that they're going to need, well then of course at that point you may decide to create a profile specific for them. I tell you, there's certain content that you can place on a dashboard that some of your basic users, even your supervisors, may have no interest in having, right? There's content that displays how much money you're paying out in overtime. It's probably the last thing you want some of those guys to see. So you may create a dashboard profile for a director or for someone high up there, and just not grant access to that view to anyone but those key people.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, so I added a link to the advanced setup and training classes. It's here on my chat. So if you go to the chat section, you can click on that link and then save it as a favorite. Okay. You can also find the link using your Basecamp project management tool. For those of you that opted to use that, you'll find links to the advanced classes as well. Okay. Well, thank you so much, and please enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you.